Today we're ranking NBA teams based on their future. That means the young core of players and also future draft capital moving forward. So without further ado, let's get into the video. So first, we are starting out with the New Orleans Pelicans, and there's no other place to put this team but the A tier. Really not much explanation there. They have Zion, they have Brandon Ingram, they have Herb Jones, they have a multiple of draft picks from the Lakers and the Milwaukee Bucks. They also have their own picks. So the New Orleans Pelicans' future is in great hands with a young core of guys and the draft capital. Next, we have the Memphis Grizzlies. Now, Ja Morant pretty much puts them in the S tier by himself. They also have Desmond Bane, Jaren Jackson, Dillon Brooks, and some other key young guys off the bench like Zaire Williamson. And they've managed to do all this by keeping all their own draft picks and building through the draft. They were a playoff team this year and looked at be sleeper contenders for next year. The Sacramento Kings, they have De'Aaron Fox, they have Murray, they have Davion Mitchell. Sabonis is kind of young, but they don't have a whole lot of draft capital. But I think the group of guys that they have a good balance of veterans and young guys. Will that lead to playoff success? Not really, what the young guys they have now. So I'm going to say B tier. Next, we have San Antonio. Okay, never mind. I'm putting the Kings on B, or on A tier. Because I'm putting the Spurs on the B tier. And for the Spurs, they don't really have any young, exciting players. They have Josh Primo. They have 3 first-round draft pick rookies from this year. They have Jakob Poeltl, and they have Keldon Johnson, and a bunch of young guys that could have success, especially in the San Antonio system. And they have some draft picks from the DeJounte Murray trade. So I think B is where the Spurs need to lie. I think it's a pretty good rating for them. The Clippers, I'm going to put the Clippers on the C tier because they have Terrence Mann, Brandon Boston. They don't have any of their own picks, though. And the core group of guys like Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, and John Wall are all aging stars. Next, we have the Lakers, putting Lakers on the D. Also because they'll never look to build through young assets. They traded 2 of them away for Patrick Beverley. They don't have any draft picks. LeBron is getting old. He's going to leave in 2024. Anthony Davis is very injury riddled. So what is he going to look like when he reaches 30? And they don't have draft picks moving forward. And they're going to have to trade draft picks to get rid of Russell Westbrook if that's what they want to do. So Lakers have no future whatsoever besides the 2 years they have LeBron James left. Next is the Utah Jazz. Now, Utah can very potentially jump up to the S tier if they trade Donovan Mitchell. But as of right now, I'm going to put them on the B tier. Now, I'm saying B tier because they got a whole lot of draft capital from the Timberwolves in that trade. But I think the Timberwolves are going to be good for quite some time because they have Anthony Edwards and Cat, who are still pretty young. And the group of guys they have are still pretty much veterans. You have Mike Conley, Bojan Bogdanovic, you have Jordan Clarkson, and then you have Donovan Mitchell. So as of right now, I'm putting them on the B tier because you don't really know what direction they're going to go into this season. And the draft picks they have are going to be, they're first-round picks, but they're not going to be that great. I'll look towards the 2027, 2029 picks because those could be interesting. But right now, their young asset pool isn't fantastic. Next, we have the Suns. I'm going to put the Suns on the A tier because they got Devin Booker, Ayton, Bridges. Do I put them on? I think I might put them on the A tier because their guys are starting to age a little bit. Their core group of guys are still pretty young, but what they don't have any future picks. Chris Paul is aging, and he really hurts them for this video. But you have Devin Booker, who's a star. You have DeAndre Ayton, who's a good starting center. Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson. I already went over them. So I think A tier. I think A tier is where the Suns need to lie. Washington Wizards, I'm putting them on the C tier. This team always finds a way to be mid, whatever they want to win or lose. They have a couple young, interesting guys. You have Rui Hachimura, Kyle Kuzma, Johnny Davis. That's really about it. I know I'm missing one other guy. Dennis Viadfia, but no future picks, and none of those guys are pointing out to be like above role player type of guys. Kuzma's got a little in him, but I think he's kind of plateaued as a player. So I think C is where the Washington Wizards need to lie. The Orlando Magic is interesting. I don't think I could put them on the S tier because they don't have like that standout All-NBA caliber player yet. Banchero could make it. Franz could make it. And then they have a lot of other interesting guys. Not a whole lot of draft capital that has much importance. They have Fultz, Cole Anthony, Jalen Suggs, Jonathan Isaac, Wendell Carter. The list goes on and on for this team. Mo Bamba. but none of them you can point to and be like, he can be your guy just as of right now. Chicago Bulls, I'm going to put the Bulls on the B. The young asset pool is not great. They have Kobe White. They have Patrick Williams. They don't have any like major draft picks. Lonzo's still kind of young. Levine, he's not really on the young side anymore for the NBA. So I'm gonna put them on the B. I think that's where they need to be in this video. Next, we have Golden State Warriors. Some people might say S. I'm not one of those people. I'm putting them on the A tier, and this is why. So the Golden State Warriors young core, I think, are just a little bit overhyped. I think people are getting them not confused, but I think the main point of the Warriors young core is not how good they're going to be. It's because they have a very solid young core, and also they have a championship level team around them, which is very, very rare. You have Jordan Poole, who could be a borderline all-star. And you have Jonathan Kuminga, who could be an all-star, but then you have Moses Moody and Kuminga, who are big question marks. They don't have a lot of draft capital. So I think A is still really good for the position that they're in. So I think A is definitely where they need to lie. You have the Brooklyn Nets. I think I'm putting them on D, right alongside the Lakers. I mean, they'd have no future draft picks moving forward. This whole Kevin Durant Kyrie experiment is going to blow up in their face at some point, even though they all committed to come back. But you never know with that team. The only young player I can really point to is Cam Thomas, and is he enough to lift him out of the D? I really don't know. He's an inefficient shot creator right now. He could be very, very good in the future, but I don't know. I just don't know if that's enough to lift him out of the D range. Next, we have the Portland Trailblazers. Now, Anthony Simons is the really only guy you can look at. Shannon Sharp is interesting, but you really don't know what you can get out of him yet, mainly because he hasn't really played basketball in like 2 years, but he's hyper athletic, good shooter. But you don't really know with this team yet, so I think B tier is where they need to lie. They're going to be pretty average until Dame Lillard really starts to regress. But Anthony Simons, I'm really high on him, so I think B is where they need to lie in this video. Miami Heat, I think I might have to put the Blazers down here because I think Simons is the only guy. And for the Heat, you have Tyler Hero and you have Bam Adebayo. Those two are really good. Those two are almost good enough to put him up in the A tier in my opinion, but what worries me is the Jimmy Butler not the Jimmy Butler contract, but he is going to start aging relatively soon. You have Kyle Lowry's bad contract, you have Duncan Robinson's bad contract. You don't have a lot of major draft picks moving forward. So right now they're at the B tier with Tyler Hero and Bam Adebayo, who is an all-star. Tyler Hero could very well be an all-star this year. So I think B tier is good. They're knocking on the door to the A tier, but we're going to leave them there. I'm going to put the Hornets here mainly because of just LaMelo Ball. Like, LaMelo is literally carrying them from D to B. Okay, maybe from C to B. But besides LaMelo Ball, who do you really have? Miles Bridges is no longer part of the team. You have P.J. Washington. You have James Bouknight. You have Mark Williams. Washington is kind of who he is. Mark Williams, big question mark, and so is James Bouknight. Not a lot of draft capital moving forward. So I think B tier where they need to lie. The Houston Rockets, I'm putting them on the S tier because Jalen Green is really going to be that guy for them, and they have a ton of draft picks moving forward from the Nets, who are going to blow up eventually. And you have Kevin Porter, you have Jabari Smith, you have Sengun, you have Christopher. You have a lot of nice young guys who are going to develop into pretty solid NBA players. So I think S tier is where the Rockets are going to lie in this video. Mavericks, Luka Doncic puts in the S tier by himself. Not really much else to talk about there. Timberwolves, I'm just going to put them in A because they don't have any draft picks moving forward, but they do have Anthony Edwards and they do have Karl-Anthony Towns. And Rudy Gobert's not young. I don't know what I'm talking about. D'Angelo Russell's not really a needle mover for me. So A tier is good for the Timberwolves. Same with the Nuggets. I think Nuggets A tier because they got Jokic. The only thing that concerns me with them is Michael Porter Jr. and his back. He's had 3 major back surgeries now, and he's not even like 25 years old at this point. And you have Jamal Murray coming off an ACL injury. You have Bones Highland, who could be interesting. But other than that, they just surrounded that team with a bunch of role players who are veterans, which is exactly what you need to do with Jokic. But there's not really much else to talk about in terms of their young future, like their young pool. I think Jokic is like 28 now. He's not going to be young forever, and he's also a big. So that is a bit concerning. Even though he's been durable, big guys don't last as long as guards and forwards usually. Jokic could be a different story because of his play style, but we're going to move on from them. They're in the A tier. Thunder, S tier. They don't, unlike, they don't really have that guy you can really point to yet. You can make the same argument for the Rockets. But they have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who's going to be an all-star. You have Josh Giddey, who's very unique and interesting. You have Chet Holmgren, which at worst I think is going to be a starting-level center. And you have all those draft picks. I mean, you have Jang that they drafted this year. They have Williams they drafted this year. A bunch of young guys off the bench. They're going to develop. I mean, they have so many picks that they're going to hit on a couple of them. So they're building a championship roster as we speak. Atlanta Hawks, I'm putting them in the S tier because they have Trae Young. Trae Young is that guy. They have a good core. Do I put them? Because I did put the Minnesota Timberwolves at A. I think I'm going to put the Hawks at A because the draft picks they had to trade away. You have Trae Young. You have Dejounte Murray, who's still kind of young. He's like 25, 26. I don't know if he really counts. Yeah, you have DeAndre Hunter. You have John Collins. You have Okongwu. They still have a nice young core with the guys, plus adding Dejounte Murray. So they're going to be a pretty fun team moving forward, and their future is in good hands with Trae Young. The Bucks, this might be a questionable decision. It's kind of going against the green for the rest of my teams. But you have Giannis Antetokounmpo, the best player in the NBA, and he's stayed relatively healthy. You're gonna be a 50-win plus team every single season he's playing for you, and he's like 27, 28. Like, he's still got a lot of years to go as one of the best players in the NBA. That, let alone, is on like the Zion Williamson, the Ja Morant, the Luka Doncic tier. So that's where he's gonna lie for me. The Detroit Pistons, they're going to go in the A tier. Pretty easy there. Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, Sadiq Bey, Isaiah Stewart, Marvin Bagley. Like, they got a good young group of guys. Not a lot of draft capital. If they had a couple more draft picks, I would put them in the S tier, but they don't. They have their own. They have a pick from Portland, and not a lot of others that have much significance to them. So I think A tier would need to lie. The B tier, I'm putting the Indiana Pacers. They have Tyrese Halliburton. They have Benedict Mathurin. They have Chris Duarte. Other than that, not really much to point to. They could be a different story after they trade Miles Turner and Buddy Hield. But for right now, B tier, considering the lack of assets they have moving forward. Cleveland Cavaliers, A tier. If y'all watched my top 25 under 25 video, you saw that I had 3 Cavaliers in that video. You had Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, Jared Allen, and that's all you need to make it to the S tier. You have 2 guys who made the All-Star team, and you have 3 guys who are going to make the All-Star team next year, or sometime in their future. So Cavs, S tier. Celtics, I'm putting them in the S tier. Tatum's 25, Brown's 26, Robert Williams is under 25. You have Marcus Smart. You have Peyton Pritchard. You have some good guys off the bench. They did get a little older this offseason, so if you want to say they're not really a young core anymore, that's on you. I could be in a homer, but they just made it to the NBA Finals, and they're going to be very, very good for the next 5 or 6 years. The New York Knicks, see, they're interesting. To me, honestly, I think the New York media is hyping up their young prospects higher than they should be. They have RJ Barrett. Jalen Brunson's still kind of young. They have Mitchell Robinson, who can't stay healthy. They have Quentin Grimes, who had a great summer league performance, but there's not really much to go off from that. You have Obi Toppin. You have Quickly. None of those guys really stand out to me. RJ Barrett is the reason why they do have a lot of, I'm putting them in the A tier because they do have a lot of draft picks now. The draft capital is going to be huge, especially if they can use them to pull off a Donovan Mitchell trade. So I think A tier may be kind of high for the Knicks. Their overall talent doesn't push them there, but the picks, get them over that hump into the A tier for me. The Sixers. So this is interesting because I'm very questionable about Joel Embiid's health. But I think Tyrese Maxey saves them here, so I'm putting them in the A tier. Look, you have Joel Embiid is going to be good for the next couple of years. His health does concern me. You have Maxey, who's a very, very good shooting guard, potential all-star, and not a lot else. You traded away some draft picks to get James Harden. James Harden's aging. You have PJ Tucker. You have Tobias Harris. You put a lot of aging veterans around that core group of guys to go all in. Don't blame them at all. They're a very scary roster. But in terms of their future, can't put him in S tier, even though Embiid's that type of guy, but they just don't. I'm also a Boston fan, so the Sixers don't really sit well with me. So A tier is where they're going to lie. Maybe that's too high. That might even be too high. I don't know. Raptors, A tier. If you just look at the roster, they're still pretty young. They have Gary Trent. They have Anunoby. They have Scotty Barnes. They have Precious Achiuwa. Fred VanVleet is still kind of young, not really. And then obviously they got some good. They have all their own picks, which they have a really good development system. So that's gonna lead to some good role players at worst. So that's my list. If you want to see 2 more tier ranking videos, I'm popping up on the screen now. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.